Welcome in, everybody. Monday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show. I'm back after Clay had the con solo on Friday. We've got a lot to talk to you about today. Another Twitter files dump, a big drop of info from inside of Twitter HQ, but also some fantastic tweets from Elon Musk, who has clearly been red-pilled at some level, clearly aware of the war against wokeness and its importance. In fact, he says, if you don't win the war against wokeness, nothing else matters. I actually don't think that's an exaggeration. I think that wokeness is a movement that is trying to destroy America as we know it, and with it, the free world. Mr. Clay, the Twitter files revelations completely ignored by the media. At some level, I think it's fascinating because everything that we have said, meaning you and me, but also a fair amount of conservatives who have been following this all along, what we've said about this has now been proven true. But it seems that one of the tactics here is to say it's a nothing burger when we have the actual proof to show that Twitter was acting in a partisan way to throw elections, to kick Donald Trump, the sitting president, off of media, because we kind of knew what was going on beforehand. This seems to be one of the arguments that we're being met with.
It's moved very quickly, and you have to pay attention because otherwise you can miss it. But it's moved very quickly to, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist. That isn't happening on a huge variety of subjects, but certainly on big tech collusion with the Democrat Party, to, well, of course this is happening, and it's a good thing. And you can't just glide over this and avoid what is happening in terms of the narrative transition, because this is, I believe, the biggest story. What Elon Musk is doing right now, it makes Watergate seem like jaywalking. And the fact that the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, they're all pretending the story doesn't exist because they are part and parcel of this story, because prior to now, they have helped to ensure that this big tech collusion is going on, because it's not just big tech collusion between the Biden administration, which we're going to get to, I think, very soon, but also their allies in the media. So this is a three-way massive collusion. All of them were effectively on the same team, and they were rigging elections in favor of Democrats. And you and I and many people out there could tell by the way the evidence existed. That is, just by looking at the evidence, you could tell that something improper was happening in this regard. And what's now occurred is Elon Musk has provided smoking gun evidence. We were seeing the tip of the iceberg, and now we know the foundation of the iceberg, and it's all there, and they're pretending it doesn't exist. And even crazier, Buck, they're sometimes covering reactions to stories that come out of the Twitter files as opposed to the Twitter files themselves. For instance, if you say something bad about Yoel Roth, who was, it appears now, one of the kingpins of the rig job that was going on at Twitter, that's a story. Elon Musk's own political opinions, that's a story. Donald Trump's opinions of the revelation is a story. But the underlying story itself is not news. And I'll just point this out, Buck, how dishonest that is. If you are saying, as all of these big left-wing media outlets are, this is not a story, this is a nothing burger, we all knew this was going on, then why are there stories about the reactions to the story? If it's not a story, then certainly the reaction to the story wouldn't be a story. And they covered Trump and his reaction to this more than they did the actual underlying story itself. How? How can you justify it? If it's not a story, then certainly the reaction to a story shouldn't be a story either.
And yet everything that we thought about them, including the kinds of characters who are making these decisions, is entirely accurate. I mean, there's no part of this, as we see more and more of the internal information. And I keep trying to remind everybody, what you see unfolding before your eyes, if you read these Twitter files dumps at Twitter, is exactly the same mentality, approach, partisan shenanigans, election rigging that you have still to this day at Google and Facebook and Amazon and different massive tech companies where you have the same kinds of people in charge. The woke find ways to exercise the levers of power inside these institutions, and they either co-opt, threaten, or just push out anyone who does not initially share their ideology. So, as I've said, they're like an invasive species. They come in and they upset the entire environment, the entire ecosystem, and then all of a sudden, that's all that there can be. Wokeness cannot coexist with other ideas and ideologies in a company and honestly in a country, which is why I thought, some of Elon's tweets over the weekend were absolutely phenomenal. He's doing an incredible job of making the case. First of all, when he says, I know you love this one, when he says his pronouns are prosecute and Fauci.
Yeah.
Which got a lot of attention from the Fauci defenders who are legion in the left-wing media. They still pretend that Fauci was not the worst person in history.
And what I think is significant about this, Buck, is I think his favorite pronouns, prosecute Fauci. Elon Musk is, I believe, hinting at what the revelations are going to be as it pertains to COVID and Dr. Fauci's role in helping to ensure that censorship exists on Twitter's platform. Because that got a lot of attention. But to me, I definitely would be stunned if there isn't a massive amount of underlying support for Fauci's behavior as it pertains to COVID censorship associated directly with Twitter. That's what jumped out to me. I mean, he's right. We've been saying prosecute Fauci for a long time. This guy, I believe, should be serving time in prison. At a minimum, he should be charged. Our Department of Justice won't do it, but I'm hoping...
But charge... So see, this is the thing. No one despises Fauci more than me. You might despise him as much as I do. You're pretty anti-Fauci. But no one thinks this guy is worse because I had to live with it in New York. What crime do we think? I mean, I don't... Republicans, especially when they all of a sudden are back in power in the House, I think they start overpromising things. And they start trying to get everybody riled up and fired up without necessarily having a clear plan and a realistic one. So I would just want to know... What, lying under oath, that's the best.
I think you can charge him with perjury. Perjury is a difficult case to make, but I think, again, bringing charges is a significant message. And by the way, we couldn't even do that until 24 because this Department of Justice won't do it under Joe Biden.
So that's look, I hate to be this guy. It's not going to happen. Fauci's not going to get prosecuted. The only thing we can do is force the truth out about Fauci. By the way, I don't think anyone involved with Twitter is going to get prosecuted. Even if we have smoking gun emails from somebody in the White House saying, kick this person off your social media platform, they could bring a lawsuit, but no one's going to prison over this. And so I just, it's easy to get attention and clicks and viewers right now for a lot of people out there who are saying, oh, we're going to frog march. We're going to frog march this person out and that person out. What is our strategy? What truth are we trying to get to? And how do we get back power? We have to be in power to stop these maniacs. That's what we actually have to do.
I think that's a great point. And that's why our audience needs to understand what is possible. We can have hearings. This is what I've argued. The House needs to have hearings into all these Twitter files. They need to have hearings into collusion with big tech, all of these things. They need to develop a record. And then we need to have a campaign that includes these fact-finding aspects in 2024. And the only way charges are going to get brought, Buck, is if we win the presidency in 2024, we have a brand new head of the Department of Justice, and then in 2025, potentially, there could be charges brought on some of these issues.
And the statute of limitations on 1001, U.S. Federal Criminal Code, 5 years, I believe.
So it's tight.
You're going to have to slip that one in.
Move fast.
It'd be very hard to convince a new attorney general under a Republican administration, I think, to bring charges against, at that point, 80-something-year-old Fauci at the very end. I'm not saying we shouldn't. Of course, we should have the hearings on COVID origins, everything else, to get the truth out there, because as we've seen from the Twitter revelations, one of the biggest challenges we've had is we're in this democracy that's under threat, they always say, from Trump. No, the real threat to our republic, actually, is that we can't get truthful information out there. There's been a suppression and a propaganda campaign going on for years now, and it accelerated dramatically during the Trump years against the right. So getting information out there is really important. But I mean, another one, for example, and anybody who comes up with a creative bet on this one, I'd be willing to take the other side of it. Kevin McCarthy saying, assuming he becomes Speaker of the House, and he's not yet Speaker, but it's believed he is likely to be. I know people say that may not happen. Clay, they're going to bring these 51 former intelligence officials, and they're going to put them under oath and ask them why they said the Hunter Biden laptop was fake. We already know why they said the Hunter Biden laptop is fake, to help Joe Biden win the election. Yeah. And being a moron is not a criminal offense, unfortunately, or else half of D.C. would already be in prison. Actually, more, because it's 97% Democrat. Point is, we have to pick and choose our battles. There's limited attention. There's limited resources, time. You see the border right now. I mean, it looks like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie where there's just thousands and thousands of people and running across the river,
building
and
fires while they stand in line. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
It's insane. That's a huge issue. I do think COVID origins is really important. I think vaccine companies who got rich from the vaccines, there are things we should be doing. But this is playing to people's belief that there's going to be, we're going to prosecute those 51 former Intel chiefs. I worked for some of them. I know some of them. This is the game they play all day long. And it's, I thought this at the time. Some of them may even still say, I still think there might have been disinformation. Being a moron is not a criminal offense. We're not going to catch them in anything. So I want everyone to be very clear on what's possible, what's not possible, and not waste time. We have limited time, but I know it sounds crazy, but between now and the next election day, we don't have all the time in the world to sit around and wonder what our strategy is going to be. Republicans have to start also making the case as to what they're going to do if they're actually in power. So the 51 Intel guys, I don't see it. We already know of course they lied. Everyone who's not an idiot knows they lied.